Well, there it is. While we still have some sunlight to look at it. Alright, I'm told the shipment is actually delayed by an hour, so guess I gotta wait. In the meantime, just getting some sunshine. Get that old vitamin D while I wait. But it's delayed by an hour, and they said he'll be here on the way to my area. I don't know what that means, but probably means that he's just wrapped up in another delivery. I'm going to be unboxing everything before I sign off on it, because I want to make sure there's no cracks, any kind of hairline cracks or anything like that. I want to make sure everything is solid.
Oh yay, it's here!
Alright guys, there it is. I've never seen any installation videos of the ViS Racing Demon style trunk lid. This is really nice. They gave it to me as a free upgrade because they ran out of the OEM style. So I was pleasantly surprised by that, because this was the one that I was shooting for first. And it's nice to know that when I was attempting to buy the OEM style one, they said, hey, we're out of those, so take the upgraded style for free. So let's start replacing it. So first things first, don't mind my mess. Got to remove all of this. All of these. Might have to remove any kind of springs for tension, because it's kind of, look at this. I mean, we never ever have to see this again. Ever. And then we'll start converting everything over to this one. It's going to look sharp. So the first thing you want to do is remove these bolts. These are T30, or I'm sorry, T20 in size. You remove that right from up here, and that's just the first step. These corner pieces will pop right off. They're held together by one of these. Just be mindful of this clip right here. Kind of clips in, whoop, like so, and then pops right back in. But just keep mindful, pull this part and then pull away. These little suckers located here, here, and here can be removed by using one of the removal tools. You can do it, break them if you want, but try to be careful with the amount of tension you're pulling it with. They just come out nice and slow. If you have a steady hand, you can remove these no problem without damaging them and needing to replace them. All right, once you got all that removed, you want to kind of remove all your tabs holding in your wiring harness here for the rear. You might be already pre-cabled for a rear camera setup. In this case I am, but I don't have a rear camera. Disconnect your latch, disconnect the ground. Just make sure you do your own due diligence in removing everything before you start pulling stuff. This is to your light assembly. Make sure to pull out your lights and then start unbolting your light bar to remove it from the rear, and then you should be good to go. Just a quick little note here. You see how I have this surrounded, but then it starts bending a little bit. Just make sure, just be very careful with the pressure. You don't want to put too much pressure and all of a sudden it bends in and then gives out, and now you got to replace it. Just make sure you put just little bits of pressure at a time so you can nice and easily pull it out. All right, now that this part is off, I'm going to re-plug these in just partially. If it focuses, I'm going to re-plug these in partially so I know where it goes, just in case it's different sizes. This driver's side one, a little bit more difficult to take off. Just be a little bit careful. I almost busted this one coming out. Still reusable, but just be a little bit careful. Might need a little bit more attention on this one. The ground is a 10mm bolt. Once you have your ground removed, go ahead and remove the other 10mm bolt that's holding the trunk latch in place. Alright, I have the bolts that I removed. I got my trunk latch. I'm going to set this aside so I know what bolts belong to what and get ready for that reinstallation. But first, we got to remove the rest of the wiring. Alright, I'm going to remove the wiring up to about this point, only because these brackets will be then holding the trunk in place. I don't really need to remove anything further from there. Now there are 8 5/16 bolts holding your strip light together. As you can see here, there's also these tabs that hold in to the trunk itself. But overall, looks pretty clean right now. It looks like some water was trying to maybe get in over here. Maybe possibly could leak into there, which is probably where we're getting rust on the inside of the layers of the trunk lid. But otherwise, looks pretty good. But just remember, 8 of these nuts are 5/16 socket. And you should be able to get these out no problem. These are actually very easy to remove. And then you just kind of give it a good little pop. If it's taking too much strength, or if you feel like you're pulling too hard, stop what you're doing. See if you missed any nuts on this. You know, you don't want to damage it. Be careful when you're removing this connector to your other trunk taillight. It is kind of a SOB when you're trying to pull it out. So just be careful you don't break anything. So now with all that out, I could potentially... This looks like it might be a little... Oh, I might have broken it. Oh, that sucks. Alright, whatever. We'll replace that another time, but we'll keep reutilizing that. I'm thinking possibly we may have to take the trunk off so that way we get a better idea of how to remove this, just because got some anchors here. Might be able to just pull down, I'm thinking. Let's find out. Okay, it looks like these are held together by these like hooks, so you just pull this in and you should be able to come down with it. It's a lot easier than I thought. And then what you want to do is kind of angle it and then pull it out from there. Otherwise, yeah, this was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. All right, so these 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts are a 13 millimeter socket, so just keep that in mind. So there's a lot of tension, spring tension. We might have to remove those springs because that might be a little bit too rough on the carbon fiber. This was something that was already noted before. What I want to do is just try something a little bit different once the carbon fiber is installed. Obviously, we're going to have to take out the springs just for the sake of protecting the carbon fiber from hairline cracks or anything else that might happen. But ultimately, what's going to happen is we're going to either look to see if we can't find a spring of the same size but longer, thus, you know, creating less tension, or we adopt some sort of universal struts so we can still have that OEM kind of feel to the trunk. Also keep in mind to hold this up while you're loosening one of your last bolt off on one side. I gently placed it down. This is a pretty good edge right here, so if it were to drop on your glass, that could cause your back glass to break. So just be mindful of that. You don't want to cause any more harm. All right, well, carefully holding it with my hand, I have these 2 edges just gently placed and just sort of leaning, and then I'm just going to carry it away. All right, trunk is off. Looks kind of weird. Now I have it placed on the ViS Racing bubble wrap that I had on there. And as you can see, there was no way I was ever stopping any kind of rust. I mean, that's just... It's funny too, because when I was fixing this bottom portion here, which ended up rusting again, sanded all this down, free of any rust, coated it, everything, just comes back. All right, first things first, before we start prepping our carbon fiber trunk lid, we're going to remove the bolts from these wooden placements. This just acts to protect the trunk during shipping. So we'll remove these, and then we can either reinstall or just set everything up on the trunk as an assembly and then reinstalling it on the car. I think I'm just going to go with the trunk on the car first. But first I want to just check for the spring rate. Probably got to pull back some liner over here, find the spring, remove it, and then be done with that. So that way we're not causing any damage. So in order to remove the tension spring, remove your speaker box if you have one. Otherwise you might have the same thing, like a buckle right here. Remove that, bend this down. You'll see where the spring is hooked in. And basically all you need to do is just remove that from the hole, and then you have no more tension. All right, so the spring is removed. This yellow portion is on that removable part that I showed. Back in here. Back in there. I went through this hole with a Phillips head screwdriver. Let me just show you. Went like this, gripped onto the spring, and then pulled it out. Be very careful when you're doing that because this thing did shoot forward pretty fast. And then I lost, obviously, tension in here. So just be a little bit mindful. Okay? All right, just put in your tabs again and then do the same for the other side. All right, that's now removed. Now we can do the same thing for this other side. See where that is? Now, if I grab my screwdriver, as you can see, I'm looped in over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go this way with it, and it's probably going to, there it goes. That one just flew right out. All right, then you want to reinstall the hook here for your grocery or whatever cargo net you want to use here, but you want to reattach this. Make sure all your weather stripping is back where it was. One thing I forgot to mention was these cage bolts. Make sure you take them off your old trunk so then you can reuse them. They're outfitted here and here is what holds your rear view camera or trunk button and tail light in place. All right, well, I have these cage bolts in, but they're not really fitting the way I want them to, so we'll approach that later. I don't necessarily want to break anything. So these are 14 millimeter. Not like that really matters because if it's shipped from ViS Racing, obviously you might have a different size. So this does not apply to all. One little detail I noticed, they actually will give you a serial on each of their parts, which is nice. So if you remove this, well, there's my water cup. I was looking for that. But if you want to remove your springs, make sure you have a broomstick ready for the install of the new trunk. You're going to use this as a prop rod temporarily until you can find another solution. So I'm definitely going to reinstall it bare like this, and then work on getting things put together as it's installed on the brackets. Yes, that may take some time, but if you're doing it by yourself, I highly encourage you to use a second person if you're not, if you don't have the wingspan for it. So yeah, definitely recommend 2 people just for the sake of sanity checks. This is just a test fit right now. I just have one bolt on each side, but look at how sweet this looks. Oh my God. So basically how I'm going to start this out, you see these rings around on the brackets here? That's where the OEM placement was on the washers. So I'm going to try to target to line that up as much as I can and see how the fitment is. When you're done with the bolts, just make sure you check your fitment. Looks like I got a closer gap on this side than on this side. So what I'm going to do is, so what I'm going to do is you just have to make some minor adjustments to the bolts because it is kind of adjustable once you loosen them up. Just be sure to not over tighten anything because you don't want to damage anything, right? So, all right, let's make some minor adjustments and see where it goes. All right, we have probably half a pinky. Probably half a pinky. So we are, that looks pretty good. That looks pretty good. Fitment is not bad. Once we get the center strip light in, everything will kind of make more sense. But in the meantime, this is what we got to work with. I think we got it lined up pretty good. We can always readjust at a later time too. So, looking pretty good. So while I have this propped up, I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning my lights before reinstallation. Just do your best to, get this all lined up. Then tighten underneath. It was a pain. I didn't want to damage anything, but I used a flathead screwdriver and a hammer and started tapping these in. It wasn't really the exact size, but I think it's compressed in there pretty well, so it should all hold. So some of these tabs don't really fit, but we're still going to cover it with a carpet anyways, so we won't be able to see much of this. All right, got everything cleaned off at the light bar. I have my nuts in place. All right, I simply dropped it in place. I haven't tightened anything yet. Everything looks pretty good. All right, everything's tightened down on the light bar. All that's left is the hatch and also the carpet and all the covers. One thing to keep in mind is that this came with its own nuts to hold in the, I think this is for a reason why they kept this in here, obviously. So I'm not going to be reusing the old bolts. I'm going to be reusing these, and then this will be my ground. And yeah, I'm pretty sure they placed that for a reason, so just gonna reuse those. So with all that in mind, I'm just gonna take this. I took the bolts out. I'm just gonna reuse the ones that are on the trunk, and then go from there. Once again, make sure you get your ground on this bolt. I don't know how really much it matters, being that it's on something fiberglass and carbon fiber here, but might as well put things back to where they were, right? Why won't that focus? There we go. So some of these tabs don't fit properly inside the hole, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some side cutters here to just shave off a little bit so that way it'll fit, and then we'll be good to go. With shaving off a lot of these tabs, I was able to just button everything up. Everything is exactly where it needs to be. So, little side trick. Use your little side cutters, shave off a little bit of it, and it should fit in nice and snug. I'm trying to clean every piece I possibly can before reinstallation, but these covers for the brackets, I mean, if it focuses. I must have spattered a bunch of paint correction wax on these, and maybe in the future I don't know, use something a little bit more abrasive, but I'm going to reinstall these anyways. All right, the tabs holding in the carpet portion, they're a little too thick for the brand new trunk, so again I'm going to use my side cutters and cut off just a tiny bit by tiny bit, just until I get a really snug fit. So just a FYI, if you order one of these and have an issue getting these in, you're not the only one. Another thing to note, this was actually out a little bit and stuck. Kept on hearing the trunk latch actuating, or working rather, so it was probably primarily due to this. So just keep an eye out on that. Don't want a fresh install and all of a sudden things happen to it where your trunk just pops while you're on the highway. Look, it's looking good so far. Got ourselves all buttoned up. We just gotta get the handle piece that is here, that where you pull down. This needs to go back on, and then I think we're finished. Yeah, I just noticed for this piece, it looks like some sort of cage nuts are supposed to be installed in the trunk. I'm gonna go check the old trunk to see if that exists. And wouldn't you know it, looks like there is. All right, I'm gonna check and see how I can remove these. All right, these are a little bit of a pain, but kind of pop out a little bit. And just like that. Any damage? And just a tiny little bend, but that's how you get them out. And there we have it. They're in. Looks factory. That's the way I want it. All right, all installed. Keep a nice factory look on the inside. And on the outside. Oh man. Yeah. I'm already in love. Well, looky, I forgot stuff. I'm gonna clean these off. These go on the corners. Oh, that's the wrong corner. Yeah, that's the wrong corner, but you get what I'm saying. This is to cover your lay housing. So clean these off, put them back on. So house fitment, that looks pretty good to me. Don't mind all of this. This is from all the rust from the trunk. This is just gonna take some paint correction. Car's gonna get wrapped. Yeah, that looks kind of, I mean, I might need some minor, very, very minor adjustments in the future. But overall, first drop, that is looking good. Yes, I know it's sacrilege. I'm just doing a leak test since it's not raining or anything like that. Just want to make sure that I'm not gonna get any water in the trunk. And there's no rain in the forecast for a few days, so just better be safe than sorry. All right. No water to be seen anywhere. Excellent. This is just drippings from it being open. Well, there it is. While we still have some sunlight to look at it. Alignment's pretty good. A little bit tighter on this side than it is on this side, but like I said before in the video, like you can fine tune and make just a touch of some alignment with the brackets. But this honestly is the best thing I could have hoped for. I mean, look how mean that looks. Man. Yeah, not a whole lot of people have this trunk lid installation on YouTube, so I figured gotta make some content out of it. I don't see a single person with ViS Racing trunk lid for the 11 to 14 Dodge Charger. So, I mean, this is where we're at. If this helped you in making a decision or helped you during the installation process, you know, feel free to subscribe. I know it's cheesy to ask for subscriptions, but you know, you got to do what you got to do. Comment below how you think the installation went. What would have you done differently? Just things of that nature. I know it's kind of cringy to even ask for those type of things, but that's what drives the videos. So yeah, feel free and see you on the next one. Peace.